Hi friends, I'm Liz.
I'm Robby. Welcome back to our channel Bookworm Couple. Today we are going to be talking about the first book in the Crescent City series, A House of Earth and Blood. And honestly, I'm shocked that I remembered that.
Wow, that was really good.
Was that good?
Yeah, that was a lot of titles
go
and
me.
words.
Yeah,
and
a lot
you
of
nailed
so
it.
many words. The first book in this series by Sarah J. Maas. It is currently 3 are out so far. And I'm almost all caught up on my Sarah J. Maas reading, which is crazy. I've almost read everything she's written, which feels wild.
It does feel wild.
End of an era, really.
Yeah.
But I had an interesting time with this. I feel like I say that a lot at the beginning of our videos.
It's not unfair.
I think the end of this book rocks.
Yeah.
I think the beginning of it really, like the first 600 to 700 pages, is pretty slow.
So many pages.
It's a lot of pages. The book is very long.
It is a long.
I think the ending rocks. The ending saves it. But everything, it's very slow before that, which I wasn't really expecting because Sarah J. Maas usually doesn't write very like plotting books.
Yeah. I think it's like 6 different stories, that are all kind of together, but it is, I could understand that it would feel slow because it's kind of, you get a lot of information. We're very slow about how we give it to you, and it's very mishmash. We. I'm a part
the
of
royal
this
we.
Sarah J. Maas.
It's, there were aspects of this that I liked. There were aspects of it that I didn't. For the most part, I just kind of felt very middle of the road about this book. I think that a weak, weak 3/4 of the book is somewhat saved by a very strong last 100 to 200 pages. They are
it's wild.
Great. Some of the best she's written, with some of the heaviest emotional impacts that she's written, which is impressive considering this is the first book in a brand new series.
Yeah.
But that also raises the question then of, if you're able to do that in the last 200 pages, let's be generous and say 200, why were the first 600 so slow?
Well, because you can't do that for the whole book.
I'm not saying you should do that for the whole book, but it also, I don't think, needed... I just don't think it needed to be 800 pages long. That's what I'm trying to find a nice way to say.
Critique.
I think that it was a bit over long. I think that, though I will say, one thing that we've discussed this a little bit before we shot the video, but I am 100% on board anytime an author tries something new. And I think this is something very new and very different for Sarah J. Maas. I mean, it's still romantasy, but just like the urban fantasy setting and the fact that a lot of this book revolves around like a mystery.
And how much plot she gives you.
Exactly. And so much world building and stuff. I'm always for that. I think that that's great when writers are pushing themselves instead of doing the same old thing over and over again. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of that in here still. So if you like Sarah J. Maas's older stuff, I think you'll find a lot of the same stuff. However, I am always in support of authors pushing themselves and trying new things. So I like what this book represents for Sarah J. Maas as a writer.
Yeah.
I don't actually love the book that much, but nothing's perfect the first time around, right?
Sure.
So I'm interested to see how the second book is, for sure.
Yeah, I'm intrigued to see how you like it too.
You'll also notice that I'm mostly talking about like generalizations here. 1, because of spoilers, but 2, because like none of the characters made that big of an impact on me. But well, at least not the main characters, interestingly enough.
Okay.
But
the sass is strong.
So that all being said, you got any other generalizations you want to say before we jump into spoilers?
No, I love this book. I know this is another one of those that people aren't super obsessed with, but I love it. I think it's really fun. I agree with you. I think I went into it at first being like, I don't know if I like this whole, like, they have cell phones and all the things, because it is very different, and I ended up absolutely loving it because it is different. I like the author. I like how she writes. Love how she writes characters and emotional development, and I think this is really great. I'm a big fan of it.
Nice. I like that. Yeah, so spoilers going forward. If you have not read House of Earth and Blood, the first book in the Crescent City series, probably turn it off here, come back.
Spoilers,
yeah. And we'll still be waiting for you. But I think that's enough time. So spoilers.
Spoilers.
The opening of this book starts with a murder, and saying that makes it feel like, wow, this book must just like rocket off to a start. But that murder doesn't actually happen for like 100 pages. And even that first 100 pages, I kind of felt a little bit of like, what's going on? Because she throws a lot of ideas at you. So many names and like locations and things about this world, which made me feel like I was reading I don't know, like a much more dense book. It took me a long time to kind of grasp who everyone was and what the heck is actually going on. There's a lot that's thrown at you right away. And so even like, I kind of knew that there was a murder in the beginning of the book. I didn't know who, but I knew that there was a murder at the beginning of the book just because of cultural zeitgeist.
Oh, okay.
And I kind of expected that to happen like right away. And when I was at like a page 110 being like,
see, that's so
what's going on?
That you say that, because in my mind, I'm like, it happens immediately. What are you talking about?
It doesn't happen immediately, and that's the thing.
What are you talking about?
I'm probably over-exaggerating. I bet you it happens in page like 80, whatever. It felt like it took a while for that to be the insight, because that's the inciting incident of the whole book, so it makes everything before it feel like a prologue. But
you get set up.
Yeah, and that's fine, but it's a very long one.
So that you're emotional for
the only person in that group that I cared about was Danica.
Well, yeah, fair, but you did care about her because you got some stuff.
What's his name? Charles? Charlie?
Charles.
Connor. This dude started with a C. He sucks. I didn't like him. He was kind of the worst. And so are the wolves. And I have a bone to pick with them. We'll talk about that later.
Literally.
But the wolves suck. They are the worst. And nothing that happens in this book changed my mind about that. The only one of them that I like is the old guy who's like, wolf in here. And I went, that is the most over-the-top thing I think I've ever read in a book.
So good.
He's like, he wakes up from his nap to be like, wolf in here. Yeah, I'm like, okay, man. Like,
great.
Thank you. Great.
I love that endorsement. Thanks.
But yeah, the rest of them suck. Sabine's supposed to suck. I don't think the rest of them are supposed to suck, but I think they do. Anyway, I love Danica, and her relationship with Bryce I really liked because, well, yeah, it's great. It's great best friend relationship, but also, we spend so much time in all forms of media talking about romantic love, and there's never really a place to talk about a platonic connection that goes that deep as well. And I actually really liked in the beginning where Bryce was kind of just in her inner monologue before Danica died, thinking about, I think it was probably about Connor, but just like who she would end up with long-term romantically, and like what that relationship would be like, because she gets everything she needs essentially non-romantically from Danica, and so all she really needs from a romantic partner is like kind of sex. And so but that's interesting, because that's also something that's not really ever talked about in media, and is also something that is, I don't know, shouldn't be looked at as any less than a romantic partnership.
I think it's really important. I think community is so important, and I think that sometimes I also found this refreshing to read, because female friendships are, at least in my world, not, I have great ones, but they can be very complicated, and especially because I think this world tries to get females to compete with one another 24/7, and so to have a beautiful, I support you no matter what kind of friendship is it's really nice to see on stage. On the page. I agree with you.
Yeah. So I really like that
Danica's
aspect.
awesome.
Danica's awesome.
Rainbow hair.
I thought it was the whole opening. I mean, not the murder, but like the whole opening with like all the drugs and the partying and all the sex. I just thought was very funny. I was like, wow, what an vibe.
We're setting the stage for the city.
That's not,
Hot girls in the city.
Hot girls in the city, baby. Hot girls in their 20s in the city.
Short skirts, high heels.
Yeah. I mean, the amount of time they spent talking about how hard it is to walk in high heels, I was like, I bet it is. I can't even imagine. Yeah, so I really liked Danica, and I was bummed when she died. So that worked for sure. But then everything after that, for a very long time, there were multiple instances where I was just like, what are we doing here? What's going on? Like, what's the point?
I think some of it to me is kind of like an emotional slog for a reason, because I think we sort of have we talked about this with Nesta's book, of having that realistic time frame, more so realistic time frame. I did like the time skip.
I love a time skip.
Yeah, for healing and grief. And I think kind of having that slow is a bit of a part of that in a way. At least I could interpret it that way. Yeah.
Okay. I don't know. I just felt like a lot of the book was a bit of a slog. It took me a little bit longer than I expected to read it, because I wasn't like dying to go back, because there wasn't anything. It's 800 pages. There wasn't anything that was really driving me back for a lot of it until the very end. Even there would be a few instances when things did happen, when like the club actually did get blown up, and I was like, oh man, here we go. Things are about to start happening. And like things did happen, but then it was just really the introduction of the slow burn romance. And I was
Sure.
like, okay, well, that's fine, but I also did want there to be plot.
What's happening? I do think also, like, I mean, we talked about this on our own, too, of having Sarah J. Maas write this very different style of book from what she normally is writing. I think there is a bit of a learning curve that she goes through with this book of the, like, having so much lore and so much setup that she wants to throw at you. How do you do that? Like, how she's figuring out how to do that in her normal fast-paced measure, which to me, honestly, like, I cranked out this book, but I am very much of, like, intrigued by the slow burn romance, and, like, I will turn pages until I get what I want, you know? And so I think that is kind of a motivator for me, and, like, understanding that I'm looking for the end of a mystery, like, that's very enticing. But there are many things that I think we do quite a few side quests that slow things down a lot.
That really slow things
for
down.
Sure.
I think it's interesting. You know, she clearly did a lot of world building for this. She seems to have just, like, mishmashed a bunch of different mythologies together, which is cool.
Yeah.
You know, is leaning a bit heavily into Norse words with Vanir and Midgard, but I think it's so interesting that there's not a world map, because she spent so much time talking about, like, how not just the city map's very pretty, but spent so much time talking about the issues in the world at large. And I can't visualize any of it because it's just like that other Pangira or whatever, like that other place, which I just thought was kind of odd, since it seems like that's obvious. Like, this series very much seems like it's going for fantasy racism. That's, like, really and classism and hierarchies and oppression. Sure. And, you know, all that aside, if that's what you're going for on a global scale, it feels like it would make sense to have a world map. So I was a bit disappointed by that, but I also just like maps. I will say, when you did say that it felt like there's a little bit of a learning curve. I think so too, in multiple ways. One of them is, I feel like she felt like she had to make her prose different to represent the fact that her characters are in a more modern world, as opposed to, you know, ACOTAR or Throne of Glass, like older fantasy. You're laughing because you know what I'm about to say.
I did, because I didn't notice.
And I think the way that she decided she was going to do that, other than, of course, including phones and stuff, is just by having a kind of cringy amount of cursing. Like someone trying to be cool, which is fine if the characters were, like, preteens. Then I would actually be, like, 100% in.
I disagree with you.
She's supposed to be 23.
When you are impassioned and we are talking to our friends, how often do we curse?
Not that much.
A lot.
I will also say I did not like the fact that every time they said hell, it was with a capital H and one L. That was annoying
cool
to read.
Because it's fantasy hell, Robbie.
Yes, I understand that. It's not the same hell. But anyway, that's
just so funny. Because, like, to me, I was like, yeah, that's how I would, a lot of times, would talk to my friends.
I don't know if that's something that improved over the course of the book, or I just got used to it. Because by the end, I was not noticing it anymore.
I didn't even notice it, so I can't really...
You know what else I will also say is, if it was continuing through the end of the book, like, I truly can't tell you if it was... At least then it made more sense, because, like, more intense things were happening. Before that, there's nothing that required it.
But I also think there is that, like, party mentality with this group. So I think, and I guess to your point then, it's kind of changing the prose to be like, these are the snorting cocaine in the club bathroom people. So, like, their use of language is potentially different. Well, the thing is,
it's not like it bothers me or like I'm offended. I curse a lot in real life as well. It just felt like... it was a noticeable amount.
See, to me, I was just like, this is who they are.
Interesting. It felt like a bunch of kids trying to sound like cool grown-ups.
I'm sure other people really agree with you on that.
Maybe, I don't know.
It was just not something that
and
I
will
noticed.
also say, the other thing that I think was a bit of a learning curve was the mystery. Mm-hmm. I
agree with you.
And specifically something at the end, but I do think probably how long it took to play out, though I'm sure part of that was to build the slow burn romance, and those things are two kind of things are kind of intertwined in a way that you can't really separate. Right. But I think specifically the two, like, big reveals, the big, like, Sherlock reveals at the end, where their first one was being like, Danica took the synth and killed everyone. I didn't believe any of
No,
that
me
because
neither.
it was explained very cleanly, and I was just like, "That's." It's, I mean,
This
it's
doesn't seem
like
like
I
what it
will
was.
say, I also the mystery didn't super. It was intriguing enough. Didn't super land for me because I guess that Danica took the horn basically right after it happened.
Yeah.
So I was just like, okay, there was enough foreshadowing that it was like, obviously it's gonna
Yeah,
be
but
her.
did you guess what she did with it?
I did not guess. No, that was good.
Who would have
I
guessed
liked that?
that?
Yeah, that was pretty good. That was pretty good.
Yeah, no,
And there were
yeah,
some
that's
things
fair.
that definitely got me that I was like, oh yeah, that's a great twist. But the scene with her and Micah, a lot of great things about that scene in
With
the
Bryce and Micah
with
or
Bryce
Danica and Micah?
with Bryce and Micah at the end when they are in Griffin's Antiques. And there's a lot of great things that happen in that scene.
we're crying.
The amount of pages and paragraphs that are spent with him like explaining beat for beat his evil plan is too many.
Yeah, because he's being on the TV, and so they need him to say it out.
But then they also have Fury say, who also, what a non-character. But they also have Fury say, she's getting him to confess, which I was like, obviously, yes. Like, it really felt like she didn't. It felt like she was trying very hard to make sure that people understood the mystery because she didn't believe that people could have followed the breadcrumbs at all. And I do think some of it could have been left to the imagination. I don't know. She just way over-explained it. And it did make Micah seem dumb.
Yeah.
Because it was very obvious what she was doing.
It very much seemed like an over-dramatized, like, the end of a mystery. Yeah,
yes,
like, like a Pierre Poirot.
Exactly. Pierre? Yeah. What?
What's his name?
Poirot.
Poirot?
Hercule Poirot.
Hercule Poirot.
I believe so.
Yeah, where he lays out all of the things.
And that's a part of the mystery, and I think that it should be there. I just think the way that they used the device of her, like, coaxing the confession out of him,
I've read that as,
he should have noticed.
I read that as just absolutely because her like justifying it, knowing that it was being broadcast. Because how would he have known that it would have been broadcast?
I mean, I'm saying that if you were in that situation, he would have noticed that she was trying to get him to answer these questions. And so would have made the logical leap to, like, she's doing this for a reason.
I think it was there because of the broadcast specifically, to make that seem more dramatic and clean, and also clean.
You're 100% right. That is why that was there.
Sure.
I just think that it was a bit sloppy.
It wasn't necessary. Sure.
So we're just kind of jumping around.
Let's just do characters, maybe?
Yeah, let's talk about some characters. I mean, unfortunately, especially coming from ACOTAR, where the supporting cast is such a big integral part of the plot, and they're all, I like them all quite a bit. I didn't really connect with almost any of the characters in this book. I think that, especially the supporting characters, Fury and Juniper are non-existent, and I didn't really care about either of them. I liked Juniper's story about being, like, the first fawn dancer, but they never did anything with it, and Fury just didn't exist until the very end of the book. Yeah. And then there were some weird, like, kind of, I think, writing mistakes when it came to her. Like, there was a part where she showed up on the barge, and Bryce is like, oh my god, I see her in her, like, assassin uniform with the gun I've seen so many times. But earlier in the book, she talks about how Fury never talks about work. They never ask her questions, and so they've obviously never seen her work, so why would she have seen her in any of her gear? Exactly.
I didn't know. This is, again, one of the things that you hyper-focused on. That
I was just like, this doesn't make any sense. But yeah, and so I was kind of hoping, and Danica is the only one that we connected to, I'm sure partially by design, but it did mean that it felt like there was just kind of nothing there for us to connect with otherwise, which is why Hunt needs to swoop in. I think that Bryce and Hunt, I thought Bryce was fine. She kind of annoyed me in the beginning. But, you know, as we came to understand the character more, I at least, like, understood her. Hunt, I think, is just like Rowan and Reese had a baby, and it's Hunt, and they gave him a gun, and that's literally it. He has the sad part of, like, Rowan's backstory with, like, oh no, someone killed my love, and like all this stuff.
Toxic masculine that Rowan is a bit.
Reese and Reese got the
don't
Reese.
Talk
yes,
bad about my Reese.
Yeah, and Reese has got that. Come on, don't see.
I mean, they both do, and I mean, this is the thing I've talked about ad nauseum with, like, I think our generation and love and what's been shown to us in media and what has been marketed to us as what love is, and so much of that has been that of
Mm-hmm.
like the ownership, the jealousy, the protectiveness. That is something that I think from a young age we have been marketed as that's what love and affection is. So I think that's quite often why these characters come up the way that they are, because we are so what's the word, conditioned to crave that, or to think that we crave that. And so I think I think that's why that comes up. This is me defending Reese, really only Reese. But I was never really a big fan of Hunt either, and I know that might be a hot take, but I don't dislike him.
I don't dislike Hunt either. I just like, I wasn't saying,
don't really care for him.
I wasn't like bringing up that I think that she just like combined her other two male love interests to be like, and I don't understand why she would do that. I understand why Hunt is the way he is. I don't really care. I haven't really connected with him, but that doesn't mean I don't like him. I'm just like, yeah, he's fine.
He's got a very interesting backstory.
I do like his backstory. I think that's kind of interesting.
With his kind of back and forth drive, with his anger and being a slave, and kind of going back and forth with his motivation, and I find that part of his story very interesting. I don't dislike him and Bryce together, but I just don't love him and Bryce together. I personally love Bryce. She is one of my absolute favorite Sarah J. Maas characters, and really felt that way the last time I reread this book. I think she's everything I kind of want to be as like a, can I say badass?
Sure.
As a badass female.
Yeah, I mean, Bryce grew on me throughout the course of the book. I didn't like her very much in the beginning.
I don't think there's a lot to like, honestly.
That's fair.
Similar to Nesta.
Hunt is fine. Rune, the other, is really the only other POV character, I think. I don't think I have a single note in my notes app about Rune, because he made zero impression on me.
I have to show you all the Rune thirst traps on
He's
TikTok.
fine. He's another character that's fine, and I like his plot line about daddy issues. The most interesting part of his plot line to me was, I mean, his relationship with Bryce was interesting, I'll give him that.
Yeah,
but the Med Witch, who was very obviously the queen of witches from the second she was introduced.
Yeah, that's not a sly
that's not like
reveal at all.
Oh no, I wonder who it could be.
Like, it's gotta be.
I was like, okay, yeah, that's kind of fun. And I like the fact that the thing I liked about him is that he just didn't suck like his dad did for the most part.
Yeah, and he's got his cute little chosen family and his besties.
I like his besties. Oh, I like Declan. Flynn is kind of just his like, well,
hot
I can't
guy.
actually say that. Yeah, his hot guy friend. I like Declan a lot though. Declan's fun. But I'm trying to think like what other supporting characters there were. So Jezebel. I like Jezebel because she's interesting and mysterious. And also the epilogue of this book was super required, because the book kind of wraps itself up pretty neatly with a bow. And I was like, so what do we do now? So I appreciated the epilogue with Jezebel and Idis.
I said Adis in my head.
Yeah.
Tell us if we're wrong.
Yeah, and Bryce's entire relationship with one of the Prince of Hells, the Chasm, I believe, very cool. I liked that entire plot line, the fact that he's a cat. But the whole... I think part of the reason I also didn't like Bryce is because we spent a lot of time with her focusing on things that I immediately guessed the answer to, such as like, who took the horn? And who killed everyone? And also, does Bryce have a super secret power? Just maybe. Like the number of times that they did the flashback of like, I love you, Bryce. Close your eyes, Danica. I was like, I don't even care what happens now. I know Bryce is going to pop out some crazy power.
Drama.
Yeah, fine. But it was just, we spent a lot of time on things like that. And I'm just like, I'm tired of pretending Bryce doesn't have some weird power. But I loved Bryce's parents.
Oh my god, they're so cute.
What's her name? Emery?
No, that's Akhtar.
Okay, well, I don't know. Anyway, and her dad's Ronaldo. I like her dad. He seems fun. And her mom is fun, too, because she keeps asking her if she's getting laid.
Her mom is such a
babe.
She's an idol.
Love her. I loved the relationship she had with her parents. Ember, thank you. I knew it was an E.
That's a good one. That's a good name.
Also, I wrote in my notes, I was like, they were running from the Autumn King's goons and also fell in love. That's the story I want to read.
That's a good one.
But Yeah, I really liked them. Hunt and like the slow burn relationship was good. I mean, there were a few scenes that were weird. The one where Hunt got turned on because she knew how to use a gun, I thought was odd. But like for the most part, Sarah J. Maas is good at writing slow burn relationships.
Yeah.
So this was not an exception. It was very good and it was engaging. But otherwise, I mean, like my favorite characters in this book were probably
Syrinx, I think.
Syrinx is the best boy.
He's right there.
And Lahaba.
She's right there.
Lahaba.
That's my girl right there.
Yeah, I fully
Look at her.
wept when she really spoilers now. If you have not, if you've kept watching the video and you ever want to read this book, really spoilers.
The most spoilers.
When Lahaba died, that's like one of the most powerful scenes that Sarah J. Maas
Friends are
has
with
ever.
me, and I am not afraid.
That Sarah J. Maas has ever written, and it's the first book in a series, and that's
sobbed.
really impressive. I cried very hard.
Yeah.
There were a lot of really emotional moments at the
We
end.
think Syrinx is gonna die.
We think Syrinx is gonna die, which I was just like, absolutely not.
Don't you kill our baby boy.
And then the lighted up scene with Danica coming back, very emotional, and her doing the drop and the ascent. I mean, everything about the end is pretty crazy.
So good.
The like Micah, we realize the horn is tattooed on her back. We realize that Micah trying to use it actually worked and opened a bunch of portals to hell. Like all of that stuff, I couldn't put the book down. I wasn't planning to finish the book.
Using the rifle.
Yes, her using the God Killer rifle, the God Slayer rifle, whatever it is, that was awesome. Her vacuuming up Micah is actually one of my favorite things I think I've ever read in anything. I really liked that.
Like that is the most like Bryce moment that exists. Like that is a defining moment for her character. She's like, screw this guy.
But like I could go on and on about the end. I mean, those are some of the best moments. I mean, I didn't actually think Hunt was gonna die. Once again, Sarah J. Maas trying to threaten us with, I'm gonna kill a major love interest, which immediately takes me out because I know she is not going to.
Yeah.
So like when Hunt was like almost dead, I was like, okay, well, I'm not in this scene anymore because I just don't think
the first time I read this book, I remember thinking, because at that point we've already had multiple insane, like gut-wrenching emotional beats. I remember thinking, wow, I wonder if she's going to kill him. Mm-mm. Because this was a new book, and we also have the usual Sarah J. Maas recipe of the first love doesn't ever seem to be the first love.
Yeah, sure, yes.
But we've now kind of moved past that with some
I
other
actually
characters.
spent a lot of the book wondering, okay, so who's going to be the guy she really ends up with?
Yeah, and so to me, I was like, oh, are we going to do it this way? Great. Because I that is something that I do find intriguing about Sarah J. Maas's books. While there isn't that intense like loss of a character, I don't think I've read that very often where it's like you're fully on board with one relationship and then that relationship is changed, and I think that's pretty different.
Yeah.
For a lot of this kind of writing, but yeah, it obviously didn't happen. So
so I didn't think that was going to happen at all. I'm trying to think of any other scenes there were at the end. Yeah. Oh, speaking of Hunt, you know who I actually kind of liked? I liked his friends in the Triari or whatever you call it. I liked them a bit. I hope Isaiah and some of them are in the next book more. I felt a little bit bad that I didn't care about Justinian and Victoria really when they died. I feel like they just didn't get quite enough time to really make an impact on me. Yeah. But I think that
beyond the brutality of their death. Like,
I really liked some of those characters though, so I hope that they're expanded a bit in the next book, because I do think there's something there, and I think that now that the slow burn romance has happened, they really need to expand some of these supporting characters, because Bryce and Hunt, I don't think, can really carry a book on their own. I don't know that I think that they're that engaging.
Yeah.
And they have some big and interesting personalities around them, which I think could really lend itself to maybe more POVs, or just at least more time with those characters, because Fury, Juniper, all of those characters are very interesting. We just got nothing from them. Sure. And I think it felt even more stark because the book is so long.
Yeah.
And because I was like, we have so much time that these characters could have come in and like made a bigger impact. And yeah, some of the biggest moments in the book, like finding out that Bryce was contemplating suicide and Juniper came and saved her, and finding out that Fury and Juniper are romantically linked, maybe. Yeah. Like all of that is very good and interesting, but that's all we get of them. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, I would like more. Also, fair. Because, Bryce's friends kind of leave her out in the cold a bit, which doesn't make them seem like the best.
Yeah.
To begin with. And speaking of Bryce's friends but no longer friends, the wolves, they're the worst. There's a part in the book where she goes back and sees Sabine, who's supposed to be the worst, and I get that. That's fine. But then, like, Amory, whatever her name is, that the other alpha wolf... Amelie, thank you. Maybe? He's just the worst to her, and Ethan is Connor's younger brother, Ethan.
I think you said Ethan. Please tell us if that's correct.
Terrible.
Ethan with an I. In my head, I just called him Ethan.
I called him Ethan too, because I refuse. But he sucks, and I think he pretty much still exclusively sucks. And the thing is, like, they spent a lot of time with Bryce being like, this is why I'm really sad about it when she's with the wolves. And that makes sense because there's a lot of stuff going on. And we find out that, like, people leaked her texts. And yeah it stinks. Like, that sucks that you fully were like, okay, we'll go on a date on Saturday, but then you're screwing another guy in the bathroom. Look, that's not great. But she didn't know they were all getting murdered.
No. Like, right. It wasn't, like, in revenge of...
And look, as far as Ethan goes... It's understandable that his reaction would have been right after his brother had been brutally murdered.
Oh, like, lose his mind, of course.
Like, lose his mind and say, you're not welcome at your best friend's funeral. But then 2 years later is when he's supposed to have gone through the growth of being like, no, like, I'm so sorry, that shouldn't have been about me, I made it about me. You should have been at your best friend's funeral. And he didn't. And
I will argue
he's the worst.
He is surrounded by people who are repeating that same thing to him. So
yes,
I don't know that he has the support for that particular growth.
True, but he then also acts like he doesn't understand that Amelie, like, is doing awful things to Bryce.
Sure.
Like, so you can't really have it both ways.
No, I think that does make sense. Think about when people are, like, if he's just around that and making an excuse for behavior, being like, no, what? I can't believe that, because I think he's around those people. So he's been like, not illusion. That's not I can't think of the right word, but he's been kind of conditioned to think that they're right and everything and they're always good, not looking for the bad. Except for, I mean, eventually we get a little bit of them. I don't need to defend Ethan. I don't love him. I don't dislike him.
Yeah,
but...
I think that that part of the book was kind of frustrating for me specifically, because it felt like Sarah J. Maas was doing a lot of over-explaining for why the wolves were being mean to her in an attempt to make it understandable why they were, and it just made them seem more awful to me, because it's literally just like, well, she said that she was going to go on a single date with him, which made everyone else be like, well, they're just going to get married. And I was just like, okay, well, that's just bad.
I can't just do what you want me to do.
That doesn't make me... And Bryce was internally monologuing it about, like, this is why I should feel bad about this. And I went, no, this is why you shouldn't feel bad about this. There's a bit of a frustrating part to read.
Sure.
Which maybe that was by design, but it did not feel like it. I'm trying to think, are there any other really big moments that I'm missing or characters that I'm missing? No, Syrinx and Lahaba.
Curvy little
she's got that booty,
Yeah, she does.
I really liked how she kept flirting with Rune and Alfie.
And I do love that she's just like lounging on a chaise lounge, watching kissy vampire shows.
I'm gonna be really sad that she's not gonna be in the next book, because she rocked him.
She's a phenomenal
really
character.
Great death though, so that's
talk stuff. About like worthy.
Yeah.
Wow.
Also, what is Hunt's name? Is it Orion or is it Hunt?
I believe Hunt is his like nickname.
Yes, so his name is Orion Athlar. Better name. Orion's a cool name. Yeah, nothing else really. I liked the ending a lot. I liked the epilogue because it makes me interested. I do think one of the most interesting aspects of this was the fact that Bryce knows one of the princes of hell. That's pretty cool. Yeah. And also I just like Jezebel. I want to know more about her.
So
and like finding out that like she's actually been...
Her storyline is so your vibe.
Her actually been like hiding the Library of Parthos or whatever it's called, which is like the Library of Alexandria.
She's a crazy witch.
Library of Atlantis or whatever. I was like, this is cool, man. Cool. Like, yes. And also all the magical books. That was fun too. I was like, yeah, sure. Give all the books whatever magical power they want.
Try
sure.
to get out.
I do like that part. Mm-hmm. That's very funny.
And Lahaba's just like kissing at them.
Yes.
Great.
Yes. So I'm excited for the next book, but I do think this book was a little bit of a slog. I think part of it is just growing pains though. And so I am wholly on board with and supportive of authors pushing themselves outside of their normal comfort zones. And so I hope that the the series continues to do that instead of falling back on what she normally does. So I guess we'll see. But what do we want to rate this out of? I mean, I feel like it's got to be the horn.
Yeah, horn's easy.
Horn's
cool.
easy. So I would give this. Oh, I'm really splitting hairs here.
Well, it's hard because I'm such an emotional reader.
I think I'm going to give it a 3.5.
Yeah,
3.5 out of 5. I mean, most of the book I felt kind of a 3. There were things about it that I didn't like. Like, I think the writing in the beginning was a bit clunky, and I think it was slow for a lot of it. But none of it was so bad that it, like, feels like it should dip into, like, a 2. Because I'm just like, I don't really love it, but I don't hate it. It doesn't. It's not something that I actively dislike, which is what I kind of usually reserve 2s for. If there's something that I really hated, then I'll start dipping below 3. But it felt just very kind of for a lot of it, and then the ending was really really solid. So yeah, I think 3.5 out of 5 horns for me.
This one is so hard because I am such an emotional reader, and I said this to you. I've been reading Sarah J. Maas long enough that I know I like what she writes, and so anytime I have a new book from hers, it's hard for me to be out of like, I'm so excited to just be reading Sarah J. Maas. So I think my initial reaction to this would be a 5, but I think my kind of more realistic reaction to it, having read the rest of the series, so like retroactively, would be 4.5 because I still had a grand old time.
Great.
Yeah, it's not perfect, but I love it. I like that it's new. I like that it's different. I like that it's, the same author that I know and love, but doing something very different, writing very different characters, and I want more of it, and I love Bryce. So,
awesome.
Period.
Love that. All right, well, I think that's everything from us. So let us know in the comments down below how you feel about this book. If you've read it, do you like it? Do you hate it? How does Crescent City fall in your estimation of Sarah J. Maas's other series? I've heard that some people really don't like it, so I'd be interested to hear I'd be interested to hear what other people think. But like, subscribe, all that other YouTube stuff. Thank you all so much for watching, and
we'll see you on our next adventure. Oh wait, can we edit something in?
You did it already.
This sweatshirt. No, I want to say where it's from.
Oh, sure, yeah.
I'm wearing this sweatshirt from my friend's shop. It's called Shop Bookish Dreamers. And it says, my friends are with me and I'm not afraid. So, buy it. Period.
Okay.
Okay.